Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. I'm here as a featured designer for the Layout a Day Challenge, and that is hosted by the Scrap Happy membership group. If you don't know anything about Load or Scrap Happy, I will leave you all the links down below so you can check it out. Every day for Load, we are given a story prompt and a technique prompt to help inspire and jumpstart our layouts. You don't have to use those prompts, but I like to. And as a featured designer, that's the whole goal. So let me show you how I put this layout together based on the story prompts of looking to the future and a technique prompt inspired by an Art Deco theme of using geometrics and adding a little bit of glam. Today's layout isn't going to be complicated, just a little bit of fun angles and some glitz and glam, and that's all we're going to need to decorate up this story. I am telling the story of when I graduated high school, I thought I would go on to medical school and become an OBGYN. That did not work out, and this is the story of kind of how that happened. When I chose my paper, I chose this kind of dreamy print, and it happened to have the perfect sentiment as part of the branding strip. So I'm going to use that in place of my title, which I haven't done before. So this is a fun way to use a special branding strip. And this paper already has a little bit of kind of gold hints going on in the background. There's no foil or anything, but I'm going to enhance that with a lot more gold. And I'm going to do that two different ways. I'm going to use some pre-made gold paper products as well as a stencil and some gold paste. Now, the gold paste that I have today is from Lawn Fawn, and I've had it in my stash for quite a while. And I'm not sure if it's going to work anymore, but I do have a backup gold paste in case this one is all dried up. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, I've pulled out several gold papers, and I don't know which one is going to kind of go with my paste the best. So I'm going to do the paste first, and then we'll choose some paper afterwards. I did think about pasting directly on my background, but I wanted to kind of mute that background just a little bit more for story reasons because, yes, I had a big dream, but it kind of got overshadowed by other things. So that's kind of the mood I am setting by choosing to add this paste to a sheet of vellum. I had a thicker sheet and a thinner sheet. One would hide that background more and one would hide it less. I did go with the one that would hide it less because I know once you add paste on top of this, it's going to add even more cover power, as you will, to that vellum. So to get started, I've got a sheet down, my craft mat down to protect my surface so cleanup is easy. I have temporarily tacked my vellum to that surface, and you do have to be careful because that surface is fairly non-stick, so you want to make sure your tacking is pretty secure before you move on. I've added some tape to my stencil, and my paste is looking pretty good. It has separated out a little bit, but it is not dried out, which is lovely. So, Lawn Fawn pastes, I can say, last quite a while. I smear down a good, generous portion of this, and then I have a flat scraper to help fill in the rest of the stencil. And this is the basic process I like to do when stenciling. If I need a little bit more paste, I can add it straight to the stencil. And then I try to keep my stenciling in one direction, and unless I need to kind of fill in some nooks and crannies that were hard to reach otherwise. And then I can scrape the rest back into the jar and call it good. So here is the peel and reveal. One word of warning here is that stenciling on vellum can cause a lot of warping. That certainly did happen to me, but I didn't think about filming a solution to that while I was working because it usually doesn't bother me. Um, in the meantime, I'm cleaning up my mat. I just wanted to show you that this mat is fantastic for working with mixed media because as that paste dries, I can just scrape it up and wipe it away with a baby wipe. We'll get back to the warping on that vellum. In the meantime, I am going to alter up some embellishments. I have this set of medical stickers, and the doctor there is a dude, and he's pretty pretty square looking in his dudeness. So I'm going to try and shape him up a little bit to see if I can turn him into a woman. We'll get to that more in a minute.
But first, I want to go ahead and address that warped vellum. The best way to take care of that is to put it through a die cut machine or a laminator. And if yours won't fit a full sheet, go ahead and cut it down first. I do mist it with a tiny amount of water on the back side only. And then I place it in between a piece of parchment paper for either method because that's going to protect the embossing paste on there, and the pressure and or heat, depending on which machine you're using to run this through, can help flatten that back out. I would test your paste ahead of time because some pastes can't handle the heat, but either of these methods should work. And if you don't want to bother with any of that, just stick it under a stack of books overnight.
All right, back to my little doctor lady. I've added some extra hair. I've cut a little bit of a hip curve. I've taken off the necktie and added a blouse instead. And she's looking more feminine now. So I've got a little doctor lady going on. And I just wanted to make sure that was in there to remind you that you don't have to use pre-made embellishments as is. They're your embellishments. Feel free to alter them to meet your needs. All right, the next part of this process is to choose the gold foil, and I chose the matte gold because I just should know me, and I prefer a matte gold to all of the shiny sparkly stuff. And I'm cutting it down so that I can put it on a diamond shape, and that reminds me of graduation caps. Only I had cut it a little too big, so off camera I did trim it down a little bit more, and I'm going to line up the points of that diamond with my stenciled paper, which means I'm going to need to trim it so that it fits all the way on the background. And this is adding some nice angles to this layout to add some design and interest. And it just so happens that the point of my diamond fits perfectly inside some of those stenciling paste lines. So those diamond shapes fit together very nicely. I do my best to hide the glue behind the vellum. I can put a plenty of glue behind the gold paper, but on the rest of it, I have to add teeny tiny dots behind the actual paste, and I do my best to keep them small so they'll be less noticeable. I'm adding just those few embellishments up in the corner, and here we go, altering those embellishments again to get them to fit. They were a little bit too big and overwhelming, but I wanted to have those there as a visual reminder of what this story is about. And then I'm just going to offset two pieces of the same title together because the sentiment breaks apart quite easily and it goes very well with the journaling that I'm going to have here. And that title says something along the lines of dreams don't just come true, you have to put in hard work to make them true. And I did not have the energy for that. I wanted to go to medical school so I would have a good paying job because we grew up fairly poor. And it turns out I did not have the drive to do that. The competition mindset, it just wasn't in me. So that will lead into another story that I will tell later in the month. But for now, I'm going to finish up this story. I'm going to add some journaling lines down here in this other corner. So my design is going to be pretty heavy on the left with the embellishments and the journaling. But that gold embossing paper on the right really helps balance out the layout. So that is a reason why I left a big portion of that over there on the right hand side. And here is how I like to do my journaling. I will mask off areas and just use my favorite journaling stamp to get the lines I need to tell my story. Now, I did clean my stamp really well because I'm switching to a white pigment ink, and that ink will need to dry well before I start journaling on it. Normally, I'm pretty good about fitting my journaling within the block, but I ran off the edge there. And in order to make that feel a little more part of the design and not a mistake, I'm going to add a doodle border around the edge and kind of help tie that in. All right, that wraps it up for today. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. I do appreciate you being here. I hope you were inspired to try a little bit of mixed media or to alter up your embellishments if you don't already do those things. And I will be back with you next time with another crafty video. Until then, I hope you have an artful day.